I recently received this envelope with the contents hanging out of it. That's how I got it out of the mailbox. Kind of beat up. I did cover up the addresses, of course. I did that. It didn't come that way. Kind of crunched on the end here. It came all the way from Plantation, Florida, which is about 4 hours drive from here. So not really that far. It's not like it came from across the country or anything. I've received a few packages like this over the years. Always, envelopes torn open. And so I thought I'd make a video today about how to ship PWE, which stands for plain white envelope. I don't often have things shipped in a plain white envelope. Usually I tend to buy things they cost more than $10 or, at least $10. Because if you're buying something that's less than that and it's just a single card, it's almost not worth the seller's time to package it and take it to the post office. Just their effort to ship the thing is worth something. And so if I were buying a bunch of really cheap cards, less than $10, I would probably use some kind of an online store, like TCG Player, for example, or Star City, ABU Games, something like that. Because they have a lot of inventory and I can get a bunch of cheap cards, which adds up to more than the $10. But for singles, I usually get tracking and they come in nicer envelopes, but PWE shipping is cheap, just a stamp, right? And so some sellers like to ship things this way. The risk is that the top loaders are kind of rigid and they can tear out the end of the envelope and then you don't get your stuff. Now, if it's a cheap enough card, it's no big deal. You can replace it. They made 1 million of them. And the seller can send you another one if you complain, or credit you back the very small amount of money, because it's obviously a cheap card if you're shipping it like this, right? Or it should be. So, for the sellers, it's worth the risk to save the money, because shipping on a more expensive package with tracking might be, what, $3, $4 now? So, I can see why they do it, but it helps to ship it a little bit safer. Even if you're going to use a plain white envelope, there's safer ways to do it than this. I don't want to call anyone out here. I just want to kind of make a tutorial about better ways, safer ways to ship in a plain white envelope if that's what you're going to do. And so I guess I won't open this. I'll save this for a mail day and open it later. But see, the issue here is that there's 2 top loaders in here, and they move around. Now they're down here. And so, because even though it didn't go far, they're moving around in the envelope, they get momentum, and they do that enough times, you tear out the end of the envelope. Also, the sorting machine, if you can imagine it grabbing the mail and sucking it into the machine, it's like squeezing it like a tube of toothpaste, right? And so it catches on the edge of the top loader right here and tries to push it out the end of the envelope. So that's not cool. Especially with it being 2 top loaders. That's probably, part of the problem here. 2 top loaders is more thick than 1 top loader. But even 1 top loader is enough to catch in the machine. You're not actually supposed to have rigid items inside of a regular envelope. This is first-class mail intended for letters, documents, papers, basically folded up, not rigid items. So let's talk about how to ship in a PWE, plain white envelope. All right, we have here a chub toad. Just a regular chub toad, nothing special, super cheap card from Ice Age. Let's say we wanted to ship that to somebody. Card sleeve. That's important. Protects the card. So most of you probably know this already, but if you hold the sleeve and you move your fingers apart, like slide them together, it opens up the sleeve. This allows you to put the corner of the card in here without chipping the card. You don't want to damage the edges of the card. So, try not to damage your cards. So there we go, it's in a sleeve. That's not enough though. We want a little more protection than that. Some people do ship like this. I would really prefer to have top loaders. They're more protection, So we have a top loader here. And this is the open end of the sleeve at the top. This is the open end of the top loader. We're going to put the open ends together like that so that when it goes in here, the open end of the sleeve is not at the open end of the top loader. All right. So that helps to protect from water. Let's say the envelope got wet. It's not supposed to happen, but it can. And if it did, this would help prevent water from getting to the card. Now, if it gets submerged, you can't really do much about that. I suppose if you wanted to put some packing tape over the entire edge of the top loader to seal it, maybe that would help from it being submerged. I think that's probably a little bit of overkill, and this packing tape can be difficult to get off of the top loader if you want to reuse your top loaders, which is something that I like to do. So it's probably overkill. So it is important to make sure that the card does not fall out of the top loader though. Just like the top loader was sliding around on the envelope, the card could slide out and it gets bent, like over the edge of the top loader or something. That's just not a good situation. So for the top loader to do its job, the card has to stay inside. So right here I have some removable Scotch tape. One piece is enough. We'll put it over the end here. And I'm actually going to fold the end of the tape here just a little bit over itself to create an area of the tape that's not sticky on the end. Then I will finish putting that on there and make sure that's on good. What that does is it creates this little flap to make it easier to remove the tape. It gives you something to pull on, like a pull tab. And that tape, because it's removable tape, will come off nice and clean. You won't have any problems getting it off or having dirty top loaders, so you can keep using these to trade cards. You could also cut the tape when you go to remove it instead of pulling it off if you're using a more sticky type of tape. Then you get added layers on your top loaders. You risk cutting the card if you have like a razor, sticking a razor in there. Usually it's not an issue, but I just like to use this removable tape. That's stuck on there good enough. That's really all you need. Now we have an envelope. This is a plain white envelope. They have different kinds of seals. This is the get it wet kind. They also have the self-adhesive kind. The self-adhesive, you pull the paper off and then stick it down. That bond does get stronger over time, so it may not feel super strong when you first put it on there, but give it some time to set and it will be pretty well stuck. So we're not going to just put the card in and let it flop around, because that would recreate the same problem I had with the package I just received. So what we're going to do is we want to make sure this doesn't move around inside the envelope. There's a couple different ways to do that. So one way is to get some tape. Now for this I would use the packing tape instead of the removable tape, because the packing tape is more sticky. So you would take a piece of the packing tape and then you would tape the top loader to the inside of the envelope so that it can't move around. If it can't move around, then it won't have as much of a problem with coming out the end of the envelope because it won't be sliding around in there. But you'll still have a problem with the machine catching the edge of the top loader, the lip. And so to avoid that, I like to go a step further. So what I do is I use a piece of cardstock. Now this cardstock, as you can see, is narrower than the envelope. So I use it this way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mark the size of the envelope here on the cardstock. A little bit smaller than the envelope because I want the cardstock to fit inside the envelope. Then I'm going to fold the cardstock there on the line I marked. Get a nice good crease here. All right, now that should fit inside here. I'm going to cut off this top edge. Then I'm going to match this to the envelope again. Test fit here. All right, that is a nice snug fit in the envelope. That cardstock can't move around from side to side. Even though it's not taped to the envelope, it can't move because it's basically the same size. All right, now, opening it up here, I would tape the top loader to the cardstock. Fold the cardstock over and put it in the envelope. Okay, then of course I would close the envelope. Now what the cardstock does is it makes like a ramp at the edge of the top loader so the machine doesn't catch it. Solves one of your problems. And if the top loader is taped to the cardstock, the top loader won't be moving around inside the envelope. So it solves that problem also. Then of course you address it, return address, your address that you're sending to, and you'll want a stamp or whatever amount of postage you need. Now personally, the reason I would send something like this is if I'm shipping international. I still prefer to use tracking if I can, especially if it's a valuable item. You wouldn't want to send a expensive item with a cheap shipping method. You want to have some kind of tracking. One of the reasons I like tracking is because it proves that the seller sent the item. If the item doesn't get there, at least you know that they sent something. And hopefully it tells you where the item is, which is peace of mind for both the buyer and seller, if everyone's wondering what happened to the item. And like for me, I have a pile of mail. The tracking number is helpful for finding packages in my pile of mail. Now, that's not really a problem for most people, but it is a helpful thing. Okay, so if I were shipping in a plain white envelope to an international country because we just want to save on shipping, because shipping a box or a package, a larger item internationally is way more expensive than it would be shipping domestically within the country. So for that reason, the buyer might request plain white envelope shipping, or maybe they have other reasons for wanting to ship a plain white envelope. Maybe they're trying to avoid customs or something like that, extra fees or taxes. It's their country, it's kind of their issue. But so that's a way to have more protection while shipping plain white envelope. So you can be pretty sure that the card will get there safely, unless the envelope just gets lost. But at least they won't get an envelope that doesn't have a card in it. Okay, so that's it. It's just kind of some best practices there, kind of a how-to video. I hope you learned something. I hope that's helpful. Maybe gives you something to think about. And if you're a seller, maybe you'll have less customer complaints, less lost packages, less lost money. And if you're a buyer, hopefully you'll be getting your cards that you wanted to buy. Have a nice day. I'll catch you next time.